Welcome to the Amanda Quick Show. I am your host, Amanda Quick. I am the best-selling author of The Sex Trafficker's Wife, a story of truth, faith, and trust in self, a public speaker, and a trauma advocate. This is my show where no topic is off limits. From my own personal stories of trauma and adversity to the healing journey after trauma, parenting after trauma, and the spiritual awakening that often follows our traumatic stories. Quantum physics, spirituality, and the realm of possibility. If this sounds like your jam, subscribe for more, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Amanda Quick Show. I am your host, Amanda Quick. Today's episode, as promised, I'm going to share with you what happened on my way back from my TEDx talk. Last week, I shared, my experience in preparing and giving a TEDx talk, and I did not expect my trip back to be what it was. And I think it's worth talking about because this was the most crazy travel experience I have ever had. And I haven't done lots of world traveling or anything of the sort, but holy man. So let's dive in because I am very curious what anybody else picks up from all of this as well. So the trip there was the easiest, perhaps, trip that I ever had. I went through Denver and had one stop, and I got off the plane in Denver, and the gate to get back on the next plane to Ontario was exactly the same gate I got off at. I have never had that happen before where we literally take the same plane. And so, tons of time to go get a bite to eat or whatever and get back on the plane. Everything's on time, super smooth, super easy, which was really, I was really grateful for it, especially because, the mindset of I'm going to go give this big talk is stressful enough. But the way back was basically the opposite. So I left London, Ontario on Saturday morning after the talk. The talks were all on Friday. Everybody stayed and, had, social hour kind of after and took a bunch of photos and all of that. And my intention was to leave the next morning. It's a couple of hour drive to Toronto. And my flight was scheduled to leave at about 4:00 Eastern time. And I would have gotten back home here in Pacific time, like 9:00 at night, because you gain 3 hours. Pretty easy day. And I left in the morning and I drove along I took a longer drive so that I could go visit the Great Lakes, which I had never actually seen. Did a little bit of sightseeing and, dropped off my rental car and got to the airport. And as I was pulling into the Toronto area, I got a notice that my flight was going to be delayed. It's like, okay, it's not too big of a deal. I still have I had a 2-hour layover or something in Denver again. And dropped off the car, went through security. And the moment I make it through security, I get a notice my flight is canceled. There's a snowstorm in Denver. Damn it. I've given up my rental car. There's no more flights tonight. There's no more options tonight. It's 4:00. And I need to get all the way to the West Coast. So I'm basically stuck in Toronto an extra day after having given up my rental car, given up my hotel room, all the things. So trying not to be too frustrated and trying to go with the flow and not be stressed, I message my husband, let my kids know, and I just go sit in the airport for a minute to gather because, I don't know if you've ever had flight changes on you last minute. It's really unnerving, especially when you're trying to get home. And so I took some deep breaths, just went to sit down. Okay, I got to figure out, I need a place to stay. I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I sat down in the airport and I just sat there for a minute and I got a message from one of the other speakers at the TEDx talk. And he said, safe travels, great to meet you, all of that. And I said, well, I'm actually in Toronto an extra day. And this particular speaker lives in the Toronto area. And he's like, well, you want to go to dinner? It's like, oh, well, that would be better than sitting in some random hotel restaurant. Sure. So I started to feel like, maybe there's a reason for all of this. Maybe, there's other connections I need to make, other conversations need to be had. Maybe there's something I'm supposed to do here in Toronto. I don't know what it is, but I always personally feel better if I can see that there's potential, that there's a reason. I've taken this with me since everything that happened to me in my life, that if I look at any challenging situation and I see that there's a reason it's happening for me, if there's a reason that I needed to be there, I needed to do this other thing, even if it's not what I asked for, not what I wanted, it really helps me just be okay and kind of come back into my center and remember that I'm guiding me. I've got me. And so even with that little invitation, I felt better. And I was like, okay, I need a place to stay. There's a lot of airport hotels. I'll find one. There's shuttles. It's all good. So I book a hotel. I find the shuttles and I go check into the hotel and decide I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to just move this energy and I'm going to get ready to meet my new speaker friend in the city for dinner. And I had never been to Toronto. I've actually never been to Ontario before, let alone Toronto. And I always find it really fun to see new places and cities, but it's not something I would ever do on my own. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm in a new place, I have a really hard time venturing out unless it's really clear where I'm going. You don't really feel comfortable just exploring a random city by myself, especially at night. So it was a really nice invitation. I, took the train into the city and we went to dinner and walked around, took a bunch of pictures, saw all of the sights in Toronto. And, he shared with me his speaker journey and what he's been doing and a lot of connections, the potential to make. And, I feel like I made a friend, which was fantastic. And honestly, somebody who's in the industry that I want to be in is amazing, and being able to share and connect and, hear somebody else's challenge in their journey. It felt like a really good why. It felt really like this was worth being stuck. If anything could have happened, this was definitely the place to be stuck in, and the connection and experience that I needed to have. And, I didn't get home until pretty late, and I had an early flight the next morning. And in my mind, when I rebooked my flight, Denver was closed because of a snowstorm. And so the other option for me was to come as a connection through San Francisco. And I was like, great, we won't have to worry about snow. Even if, the snow is supposed to stop, I won't have to worry about it being cleared or anything else, or any other backlogs. I'll just go through San Francisco. But the flight was like 6:30 in the morning, so I only got a few hours of sleep. But I figured I would rest on the plane. I just had a travel day, not too big of a deal. So after dinner, and I got back and I had my sleep, checked out really early, took an early shuttle. And as I was checking in, to double check everything on the shuttle on the way to the airport, when you rebook your flight, you don't get as many choices for your seats. You don't get to pick the aisle or the window or whatever you want. You kind of get shoved wherever. And most of the time, that's some middle spot that's left. And I hate middle seats, especially in like 6-hour flights. You don't know who you're going to sit next to. And so I was looking, and sure enough, they put me in some middle seat, and it's a 6.5-hour flight from Toronto to San Francisco. And so what I did is, I don't know if you've ever done the like online booking thing, but if first class is available, usually that last moment, just hours before it's going to be, the flight's going to take off, it's the cheapest it'll ever be. And in this particular instance, first class was only like $100 or something to upgrade. And first class meant, I got to pick a window or an aisle, bigger seat for a 6.5-hour flight on just a few hours of sleep. And I had this really strong intuitive nudge. Just book it. Just like, screw it. And I said, okay, I'm going to book first class. I don't usually do stuff like this, but it feels like the thing to do to be the most comfortable, get the best rest that I need. So I booked the upgrade, and, it also meant faster through security, because all of a sudden I was on a first class ticket, which ended up being needed because the Toronto airport, you actually go through customs on the Toronto side, not when you land in the US. And so I made it through security fast, but the customs line was massive. And I felt like, oh no, I might not even make it, but I successfully made it through just in time. My plane was boarded the flight. Phew. Okay, I'm here. Flight's not canceled. Everything's on time. All is well. napped on the airplane, got fed breakfast, which was great because I hadn't eaten anything. If you've ever ridden first class, you get all the free drinks you want, all the free snacks, all the food. And mostly I just napped. And it ended up that there was actually a couple of seats empty. And so when I upgraded my flight, I actually got nobody sitting next to me either. So I had the whole first class row to myself, which was fantastic. And as the flight's coming to an end and we're getting closer to San Francisco, the weather's shifting. We're starting to have some turbulence. Nothing crazy. And eventually, we're going to some turbulence and they say, the flight attendant should take their seats. And sometimes that happens in higher turbulent areas. Nothing to really stress about. And I'm, looking out the window. I'm in the, front of the plane, just kind of watching. We're in some pretty heavy weather, some clouds. Plane's pretty turbulent. Next thing I know, there's a big flash and the plane feels like it was hit. Like there's a flash and a bang that hits the plane. And I go, what the heck was that? And I look at the, people in the other rows. What the fuck just hit us? But we're in really high turbulent, situations. The flight attendants are not moving around. The pilot's not talking to us. We're still in the air, right? Nothing takes a nosedive. Are trying to stay calm, having the conversations with myself. Nope, I got too much left to do in the world. We are not going down. We're okay. All of the positive affirmations, all of the visualization work that I can do, staying grounded in myself. And you can tell when the plane is trying to land. You can feel the descent and you can feel the plane turning, and the plane is trying to land in what appears to be San Francisco area. And every time it gets lower, it pulls right back up. And we do this a couple times. And next thing you know, the pilot says, we're being redirected. The weather's too bad. We're being redirected to Sacramento. Okay. So we get redirected. It's only like a 20-minute flight away. And we get redirected and we successfully land in Sacramento. And once we land, the pilot tells us we were hit by lightning in the air. That's what the bang and flash was. What? We were hit by lightning and in the air? Holy crap. And we're grounded in Sacramento. And not only that, despite the fact that we've cleared customs, they won't let us off the plane because Sacramento is not an international airport and there's no border patrol. And even though, again, it's just supposed to be a domestic flight because we've all been cleared, doesn't matter. They won't let us off. Border Patrol is having a hissy fit with United. Nobody's going anywhere. So we're landed on the tarmac. No idea how long. We have no idea if the plane is okay. We have no idea what is going on. And we're all trying to process the fact that the pilot just told us we were, in fact, hit by lightning in the air. And at this point, I'm having a bit of a surreal moment because, I just came from one of the biggest events in my professional career, and giving a TEDx talk is a very big accomplishment. And I know, and I truly believe that this talk is going to have a big impact on the people who need to hear it. And then I get hit by lightning. And truly, I saw the flash, and where it felt like it hit was right where I was sitting. Like it felt like it was coming at me. And I have no idea where it actually hit on the plane. I don't have any of that information, but that's how it felt because I saw it right where I was looking out the window, and not the whole plane didn't see it. Well, the whole plane felt it, but only the people around me actually saw it. And whether it hit by my side of the plane or not, that's how it felt to me. And it felt like this big, almost boom thing. And, from an energetic standpoint, being hit by lightning literally breaks the barrier and fabric of reality in a sense. I mean, a lightning is literally like a tear and a rip in this fabric. That's how it looks and feels. And we just were hit and went right through it. Now, I've also watched the full seasons and all through season finale of Manifest. And I don't know if you've watched that show, but basically they go through big turbulence and, go through dark lightning, whatever that means, and go back in time. Actually, no, they go forward in time 5.5 years, and to their experience, no time has passed, but to the people back home, 5.5 years have passed. And so they have this like huge disconnect in 5.5 years. And eventually, through the end of the whole season, I'm not going to do any big spoilers, but they go back through and come out the other end. And so it's like it's still 2024. Nothing has changed. Everybody's still in one piece. Holy crap. And, I'm texting my friends. I'm texting my husband. I'm trying to process this. We're okay. They won't let us off the plane. There's a handful of people on the plane who start having like full-blown panic attacks because they won't let them off the plane. Sacramento is an hour drive from San Francisco. So if that was your final destination, you just want to get off the plane and go home. Like you don't want to stay. And they're saying we're basically going to get back in the air soon. We just need to change out pilots because pilots are only allowed to operate a plane a certain period of time. That's a federal mandate. They can't operate the plane more than, I don't know, whatever, 8 hours or something it is. And we were coming up on that max. So the pilots get relieved and new pilots come, but we have to wait for that. And eventually the people having panic attacks are allowed to be removed from the manifest and allowed to clear customs differently and are allowed to get off the plane, but nobody else is allowed off. And they basically say, get back in your seat. You're not going anywhere. And so it's like, what? You're holding us hostage on this airplane that was hit by lightning. And I'm sitting there going, thank God I upgraded myself to first class because the rest of them don't even get, they don't feed you in airplanes anymore. They might give you some water, but you got to pay for snacks. They might not even have any. You're not prepared. There's people with kids, all the things. But in first class, they just open up all the snack boxes and give them to us. So we're fed, we're well hydrated, we have plenty of space and room. And I just sit there and just kind of soak it in. I just got to soak this in. Holy shit. And we end up spending another 6 hours on the tarmac in Sacramento. 6 additional hours after a 6.5-hour flight. So I'm in this plane for 12 hours. And eventually, after 6 hours go by, this new pilot comes and we get cleared. And he says, we're going back to San Francisco. And we're going back now. And we're like, what? In the same plane? And he's not giving anybody a choice. There's no options here. He's saying we are doing this. This is what's happening. And we're going back through the weather. And maintenance has cleared the plane. We're good. So we brace ourselves. And the flight back to San Francisco is probably one of the most turbulent flights I've ever been on. The flight attendants never leave their seats. They stay in the entire time. And when we get to Sacramento, we feel the descent and we come back up again. And we try a second time. We go down, turn around, come back up again. And the third time, they finally make it. I thought they might even redirect us again. But this time, they finally successfully landed. They finally landed in San Francisco. It is pouring buckets. It is crazy weather, huge winds. We are looking at the news. There's hurricane level winds, crazy amounts of rain. Like this weather event was almost unprecedented in San Francisco at this moment in time. We get off the plane. There's still supposed to be another plane I think it was 4 hours later that would get me all the way home. So I go get some dinner. I sit down. I wait. Pretty shortly after I eat, I see that all of the planes have been canceled because the weather's only supposed to get worse. So now I'm stranded in San Francisco. Deep breath again. Find myself an airport hotel. Find myself the shuttles. The shuttles are like across the street in the pouring bucket rain. Change my mind, go find myself an Uber and get my butt to a hotel. As I get to the hotel, I start reading the news and looking at the weather event. And this weather event is called a bomb cyclone. I'm not joking. I didn't know this was a thing that existed. A bomb cyclone is a type of weather event that literally appears out of nowhere. It's like an almost insta hurricane, essentially. And what the news said that was different and interesting about this is that most of these type of bigger weather events start somewhere in the Pacific Ocean and then make their way to land. But this one, it was different because it was started on land. It was started right on the coast. It was created there. Like, well, isn't that something? And, schools were canceled the next day. People died because trees fell on their houses and cars were being blown off the road. Like this was insanity happening. And I just tucked myself into bed, and after, almost no sleep and 12 plus hours of crazy flights, and then another hour of, knuckle biting flight to finally land and get into safety, I just knocked out and did my best to rest, knowing I was going to have to be back again it the next morning. The next morning was Monday morning. I was supposed to be at work. So I'm moving meetings and it's bedtime. And I just really was sitting with, like, what on earth is going on? How in the heck is this my current experience? This is nuts. I thought San Francisco would be the better choice. No, not today. Most of the time, yeah, we don't have snowstorms in San Francisco, but bomb cyclones. And so I woke up the next morning. I had I think it was an 8 o'clock flight or something that Monday morning, so not as early. Had some breakfast, and it was clear skies. Literally clear blue skies, like nothing had ever happened. Got myself another, shuttle ride to the airport, got on the plane, and made it home by lunchtime. And I got off the plane, and my husband picks me up, and I look like a zombie. Even though I slept, my energy was so shaken and so ungrounded that I didn't even feel like myself. It was like I had just been through this huge experience between the high of the talk, being giving this talk of my life, to feeling like everything is happening for me and I'm being introduced to the right people and I'm making these amazing connections, to this literal lightning strike in my plane and a bomb cyclone weather event, to finally making it home safe. It took me a full week to fully recover from that experience. It was, holy man, I telling myself, here I am wanting to go do more public speaking around the world, and that means more airplanes. And I'm mostly through it now, and I know that those things don't happen very often. In fact, the flight attendants told us they had never experienced such things before. It's not that it never happens, it's a very rare occurrence. But the flight attendants, even who fly for a living, hadn't experienced that. And so it's unlikely, right? Lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. I don't know if it doesn't strike the same person twice, but I think I read a statistics that men are actually more likely to get hit by lightning than women. And I don't know how true that is either, but I definitely felt like something in me shifted from an energetic standpoint in that moment between the talk and then the travel back. It was like I was jumping timelines. It was like I was stepping into this new version of self, this new version of what was coming, in a way that I can't even logically explain. It doesn't really have a logical explanation. And the more I sat with, this idea that things that we put into the world, the stories we share, the awarenesses, the problems we help solve, the products and services, every problem that we try to help the world with, every person you impact can potentially impact other people. And that's what they talk about, like this ripple effect. And you help 5 people, those 5 people help another 25 people. And, it exponentially ripples out through the collective. And, the one-to-many conversations, and it turns into more of a wave, right? And then there's those of us who are here to hit y'all by lightning. And it was just this like, whew, okay, so perhaps the words that I'm saying are going to hit people kind of like that. And that's a really hard thing to wrap my mind around. It's a really hard thing to grasp. And yet it feels somewhat true. Biggest traumas that we experience, the biggest things that happen to us, are like big fucking lightning strikes. They break our world. They rip everything we know to be true apart. Every piece of identity we have is in question. Every piece of what matters to us is in question and changes. And we have to face all of our fears at the same time. It is a lightning strike. These big, huge experiences that some of us are faced with. And to come out of them, not only do we have that initial hit, but we have to make the choice to burn the rest of it down, to change everything that we are, to look at ourselves in a different way, to take really scary, unknown action, and to change our whole lives, to change our entire identities in order to get out of these situations, which is even more like this, bomb cyclone where we literally stir it all up and poof, life is different. And it felt very symbolic of not just the experience I had and what I shared in my talk, but also what I'm here to bring to the world and what I'm here to help other people understand about these experiences and to release the shame and judgment of these horrific things. Because it's not anybody's fault what happened to them. It's not your fault that somebody else hurt you. It's not your fault that your childhood was the way it was. It's not your fault that you were a victim of a horrific crime. But you are the only one who can ever get yourself out of that situation. And that is a really, really, really hard place to be. And if we're willing to take a look at those lightning strikes and take them for what they are, and we're willing to stir up the rest of our life and to burn down what's not serving us and to rise above it, we can completely step into a new version of reality. We can completely shift our entire internal and external reality. We can impact our kids and we can impact the world. And I 100% stand by that. And whether I, caused this, weather event is obviously I'm not God. I'm not all powerful here. But the energy behind that experience and feeling it and experiencing it through as I was going through this big thing felt nothing short of just this miraculous, crazy vessel channel experience that I was living. And knowing that, feeling that, honoring it, and experiencing it all at the same time as I'm stepping myself into this next phase, this next step. As hard as all of it is, I would not trade anything that I have gone through for anything at this point. I would not go back and undo any of it. As hard as that is, I have immense gratitude for each and every lesson along the way. I have so much gratitude for having the opportunity to burn my life down. I have so much gratitude for the opportunity to experience what it's like to be at rock bottom and to claw myself out and to burn it down and rise above it and to share in all of the ways that I have and will do so in the future. It's a huge gift. It's a huge gift for me to look at horrible things and see the positive and see the potential. And I wouldn't be able to do that had I not been through any and all of these crazy experiences. And so what I want to leave you guys with this week is a question, is a thought. And whether it's, a weather event outside of your control, a family member in crisis, you yourself in crisis, your children in crisis, some other traumatic thing happening to you, to try for a moment to ask yourself, what if this is actually happening for me? What if this is showing me something that I don't yet understand about myself, or what it is I'm here to do, or how strong I truly am, or how amazing and capable I am to be able to not only survive an experience like this, but to overcome and thrive after. Like, just what if this horrible thing is for me in the future? It's not an easy place to be. It's not an easy thing to grasp. But I truly believe at the end of the day, we survived and we eventually learn how to thrive and inspire and see possibilities in anything, any challenge. Doesn't feel good in the moment, no. But I always come back to what if there's more here? And I don't know what it is yet. I don't understand it yet. Just what if this is actually for me? And if I can trust that and I can hold it and I can believe it, I can find that what it is for, and I can find the other end of it eventually. And I can see that through all of it, I am better for it today. So that's what I'm leaving you guys with today. I have so much more to share, and I can't wait for next week's episode because 2 weeks later, my world turned upside down again. So I leave you with that, and lots of love to you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Adios.